The next part of adding context to our data is talking about what. So, what was measured? What are the exact definitions of these variables? And in what units of measurement is each variable recorded? So, let's look at an example that's from everyday life. This is Kimberly's Bake Shop. They have a triple chocolate cupcake. So, my question is, what does triple chocolate mean? So I thought of two possibilities. I'm sure there's more, but the two I thought of is it three kinds of chocolate are used in the cupcake? So some sort of dark chocolate, milk chocolate, and white chocolate. Is it the way the chocolate is used? Is there chocolate in the cake, in the filling, and the frosting? So what exactly is triple chocolate? So I looked at the description on the packaging and it reads, luscious decadent chocolate cake filled with smooth chocolate fudge topped with velvety chocolate frosting and real chocolate pieces. So I counted chocolate four ways there, so I'm still not really sure what exactly triple chocolate means. All right, so let's look at an example that's maybe more relevant to stats. So this picture here, this is actually from my hometown in California. This is a major road that goes to the junior college there, and they took that road all the way down to the gravel. So they're in the process of just redoing the entire road. And the person you see in the picture owns a muffler shop that is on this road. Okay, that muffler is that part, when you go up a hill and you hear that grinding noise as your car and you're like, oh, I just scratched something under my car. That's probably the muffler. So he's very aware of situations where the car could be dragging that part. Okay, so he's looking at where they've proposed, where they're looking at pouring this asphalt and this where his parking lot is at. So there's a big distance here between the level of the road and the level of the parking lot. And this is going to cause cars to have a really hard time getting into his parking lot, as well as the parking lots of all the stores on this road. So he goes to Caltrans, which is the agency in charge of the roads, and he says, look, there's a problem here. Unfortunately, they chose to ignore him. Okay, and so he keeps pointing this out, and eventually more people are looking at this, and everyone goes, okay, there's something wrong here. There should not be this big of a jump between the road and a parking lot. So Caltrans eventually looks into it, and what they discover is that the survey company they used did all of their measurements in metric. So they did everything in meters, and Caltrans assumed that all these measurements were done in feet. Right? So there's a discrepancy there between the types of units. And unfortunately, this ended up costing millions of dollars to fix and put this project weeks or months behind schedule. So something as simple as just checking the units can make a really big difference in what's going on with your research. So another example, this is from the fall. So is the new Delta plus COVID variant more dangerous? So the question is, what does more dangerous mean? I mean, danger obviously has its own implications, right? Like we should be concerned, but what exactly are they saying is more dangerous? Does that mean it's more transmissible? So more people are likely to get it, but maybe it's more mild? Does it mean that it is less transmissible, but if you get it, your symptoms are going to be really severe? Is it some combination of those? So what exactly does more dangerous mean? And you need to know that in order to understand what your risk is and make some appropriate decisions to keep yourself safe. So, these kinds of things show up everywhere. Here's another example of that. Which country did best at the Olympics? Well, how do we just determine best? Is it the most number of gold medals? Is it the greatest number of overall medals? Do we account for the population of a country? So if a country is smaller, maybe the number of gold medals they've won in comparison to the size of their country is really impressive. So that idea of best is really difficult to figure out and determine who would we say was the overall best at those Olympics. All right, this example is from Netflix. So this is an article from MarketWatch. It said Netflix changes its view on views, which boosted their numbers by 35%. So in other words, now they can make the claim to their shareholders, wow, look, 35% more people are watching Netflix. What really happened here is that Netflix used to count something as being viewed if you watched at least 70% of it. Okay, so if it was a 100-minute movie, you had to have watched at least 70 minutes of the movie in order to be considered that you actually watched it or viewed it. Netflix changed its definition of view from being 70% to meaning you just watched 2 minutes. Okay. And I don't know about you, but I put the TV on as background. And so a lot of times something will come up and it will be several minutes in before I'm like, wait, I was watching something else. What is this new show? Do I like this new show? By then, 2 minutes of the show is already played, especially if I have to look for the remote. Definitely 2 minutes has gone by if I have to go find my remote. So then they would say I watched this show when maybe it was nothing I was interested in at all, and it just happened to be the next thing that showed up in the random viewer. So that change from 70% to 2 minutes, I would definitely expect that their numbers are going to go up, but I don't think it's because more people are watching TV. I think it's just how they changed that definition. All right, so let's look at maybe a more serious one. This one has a lot of implications to it, right? Overall health of people, deaths, political issues. So this article was published about 10 months ago, and it's titled CDC's Efforts to Quantify Prescription Opioid Overdose Deaths Falls Short. Okay, that's a big mouthful of lots of words that start with OP and Q. To say that the number of opioid overdose deaths is incorrect, that there is an issue with how these are being counted. And this has been an issue since 2007. So leading statisticians around 2007, 2008 pointed out some serious flaws with how the CDC organized and categorized their data. Unfortunately, nothing ever came of that. So in 2018, 4 senior analysts from the CDC came out and said, yeah, there are some serious errors here, and this number is not correct. Okay, so then the issue is the number an overestimate? Is it an underestimate? Like what's really going on? What's causing these issues? So the numbers that you often hear cited in the news are actually an overestimate. So they're an exaggerated amount of people who actually died from an opioid overdose. Okay, so some people put that as much as 30% off, that's a significant percentage to be over. Okay, there's a number of reasons for this. One of these is that there's not a distinction made between when somebody dies because of opioids, so it was actually the opioids caused the person to die, versus how many people die just with opioids in their system. Okay, and so it turns out they're counting both of those as an overdose. Okay, and the reason that's an issue is maybe somebody's in a car accident, and really horrible car accident, and on the scene, the paramedics give that person morphine. They take them to the hospital. Unfortunately, that person's injuries are so severe that they bleed out on the operating table and they die. Now, because there's morphine in their system at the time that they died, even though they did not themselves take it, it was given to them by a paramedic, and it's an appropriate amount for their body size and their condition. So it's not sufficient to have caused the overdose. It's still counted as an overdose of opioids. Right? So now you can kind of start to see how these are being overcounted. Okay, now this isn't to say that this isn't a very serious issue. Overdoses is a very serious issue that impacts a lot of people, and my heart goes out to people that are struggling with that, or families that are struggling with that. The problem is if we don't have an accurate look at what the problem is and what the causes are, it's really hard to affect change. It's hard to pass new laws. It's hard to make recommendations to doctors about what to do to minimize this problem. Okay, and so that's why having the correct number is really important. I think we all know that there's an issue here, but the extent and causes of that problem are not as clear as they could be. If we did some better statistical research and really classified these things correctly.